Good evening. Better? I am honored to have the opportunity to speak about one of my favorite subjects, music. The talk I have to share with you is entitled, Music Tells a Story. I really believe that music is one of the greatest storytellers there is. Music can tell tales of adventure and fright and love. It uses chords and words and instruments. But I believe that music is also better than words in some ways because when words run dry, music can still speak. Now, music can convey a story, but it can also write one. I'd like to share with you today my story and how music has affected me through my entire life. And I'd also like to share a few storytelling clips of music. A little bit of how I started in music. I began taking piano lessons in first grade, and my memories of childhood music was piano recitals, as well as we had a family tradition at Christmas to share music. My cousins would come, and they would bring their guitar and cello, and I would play piano, and it was just a lot of fun. I think I was destined to be a musician. I always took music very seriously ever since I started. My first band concert wasn't a normal band concert. It was actually an informal concert over the summer at a summer camp. It was mid-July, and the 3rd through 9th graders that performed showed up in shorts and t-shirt, flip-flops, and performed in front of parents and family, pretty informal crowd. But I showed up in my best Sunday dress. Another story that my mom likes to tell is how much I enjoyed performing. At my first talent show, I played piano, but the first rehearsal we had, the teachers lined us up to practice bowing. We lined up and bowed in front of a standing ovation from our parents, even though we hadn't actually played anything yet. And afterwards, I went up to my mother and the most excited voice told her, "That was the most amazing feeling in my entire life." My entire 7 years of life. Everyone has a different story about how they started in music. I started playing the flute because my mom played the flute, and that's one of the reasons some people might choose an instrument. In 4th grade, when students come into band, they pick their instrument. They could pick what their parents played or something that's in the family because they've been exposed to it. If they've never been exposed to music, they may pick something because it looks cool. The French horn, for example, looks kind of like a motorcycle engine, and you can stick your hand in it when you play it, so that's interesting. And if you play a rare instrument, such as my friend who plays the bassoon, it's generally because no one in the district plays the bassoon yet. Music is used to expose people to the world and also to expose children to the world. One such example of this is the symphony Peter and the Wolf. And this is a symphony based off of a story, a children's story, Peter and the Wolf. And if you're not familiar with the tale, it's about a boy named Peter who leaves his house through the gate to hunt wolves, despite his grandfather's warning because little boys should not be hunting wolves. As the story goes, he meets his friends, the bird, the duck, and the cat, and a wolf comes along while they're playing. The duck gets eaten, but with the help of the bird and the cat, Peter is able to capture the wolf and parades it through town, proving that boys can indeed catch wolves. So besides telling the story, this children's story, this symphony is known and recognized by teachers for exposing children to different instruments and different sounds. Each character in the story is represented by a different instrument. The bird is represented by the flute. It's high-pitched and kind of flitting like birds chirping. The duck is played by the oboe, because oboes quack like ducks. The cat is played by the clarinet. It's sort of sneaky, like a cat crawling through grass. The grandfather is played by the bassoon. The wolf is played by the French horns. And that's a definite eerie feeling by a wolf. And Peter is played by the strings. It's a lively melody to represent a live little boy. So Peter and the Wolf is not the only piece that is used to expose people. Disney came out with Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. These movies added animated scenery and in a movie-like form, and they did this with, placed it with classical music to expose the world to classical music. So it makes it more media-friendly so that people can understand what's happening, what the music means, and it also exposes the songs themselves. Another familiar piece you may be familiar with is Danse Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns, and it translates to Dance of Death. So this song, you may have heard it on a few commercials. I know there were some last year. But it's, as my orchestra friends tell me, this was played for the third grade strings to inspire them to play. Unfortunately, some of them may have been scared away by the skeletons. I was very fortunate as a child. My parents provided me many opportunities to explore music. They started me out in piano lessons, and later on let me join band, even a year early with the summer camp that I'll talk about. They took me to jazz band competitions so that I could hear what jazz sounded like, and they also took me to many musicals in Philadelphia. At the summer band camp, it was a program in North Penn used to instruct children on playing in band. It was supposed to be for students who wanted to explore more music over the summer rather than put their instrument away and not look at it again until fall, and also to gain an advantage over how music works. So at this camp, I met one of the most influential people in my life. My favorite band director there was Mr. Miller. He was the very first image of a band director that I ever had. He was a very energetic man who loved what he did, and he always, always, always had a mug of coffee in his hand, every day. Mr. Miller paused rehearsal one day to address the group of 3rd and 4th graders about why he was a band director. And he told us that every morning he woke up and loved what he did. He came in, he woke up happy, and it was because he was doing what he wanted and what he loved to do, which was share music with young people every day. Mr. Miller was the first of many to tell me to do what I loved. But in the eyes of an elementary schooler, that meant to become a band director. So with my career planned out, all I had to do was figure out how to get there. My mom and I devised a plan to learn as many musical instruments as I could by the time I got to college so that I could facilitate the knowledge necessary to become a music educator. So first, I already played the piano and the flute, and I had to decide on my next instrument. Now, being exposed to all those jazz band competitions as a child, I knew that I wanted to play jazz. So my mom gave me the choice between the saxophone and the trumpet. Lucky for me, I chose the saxophone. And I say lucky because a few years later, I discovered my love of musical theater. The thing about musical theater is when you go to see a show, the two main things that you hear and see are the actors on the stage, and you also hear the orchestra in the pit. The orchestra is a full-scored orchestra normally, but the space is limited because the entire orchestra needs to fit underneath the stage. So what they do is they economize how many people are in the orchestra by combining books, and that means you put a few instruments in a single book that one person plays, and they double on each instrument. So a very common book happens to be the woodwind book, which is the flute, the saxophone, and the clarinet. So since I already played the flute and the saxophone, I decided to pick up the clarinet. Aside from helping me pursue my dreams of becoming a band director and becoming a jazz musician and playing in shows on Broadway, music is also, multiple instruments has also opened many doors for me, especially performances and even traveling. I sing as well in a choir outside of school, and this choir goes on tours every other year. So far, I've been to Canada, Ireland, and Germany. Another influential person in my life is my grandmother. I was very close to my grandmother, and she was incredibly supportive of music my entire life. She loved music, and she always loved to hear me play. From day one, no matter how good or bad I may have sounded, she loved to hear it. In the summer of 2011, I took my first trip abroad to Europe to visit Ireland with my choir. It was a 10-day tour, a 10-day singing tour. 2 weeks before I left, my grandmother got sick. And by the time I flew home, she was no longer with us. The only thing I could think to leave her when I left the country was music. Before I left, I recorded Amazing Grace because it was her favorite piece. And when I came home, I sang at her memorial service. I say this because music is an aspect of every part of my life, the happy and the sad. In my eyes, music is what tore me away from this amazing woman. But music was also the strongest connection I had. So during this time, I was in Ireland, and I've got to say it wasn't as bad as it could have been. The thing about traveling with a choir, especially a choir like Belle Canto, is that it's a group of wonderful people who enjoy sharing music and emotional experiences. The friends that I made on that trip were amazing. They were so supportive and caring, and they really helped me through tough times. And despite the difficulties back home, I was able to enjoy this beautiful country, and I was able to experience fantastic music with company beyond compare. Music has brought me friends in all aspects of my life. Here at the high school, I've had a wonderful time in the music department. I've made many friends. But I've also made friends in the community. I've branched out into the community in many ways. I am a part of a jazz band, a swing band over in Doylestown that is really fun to play with because they have a singer that reminds me a lot like Frank Sinatra. I'm also one of the youngest members of the Montgomery County Concert Band, and this is a group of musicians who come from a wide range of career paths. Some of them are retired music educators, and some of them are engineers, and some of them are doctors. These people maybe didn't major in music, but they wanted to keep their music alive. They enjoyed sharing music with each other, and it's been a really amazing experience. Music is a lifeline for me, and it's also a part of everything around me. I've noticed, even if you don't play music, music is still a part of you. Have you ever heard a song on the radio that's made you tear up? Or heard a piece that whenever you hear it makes you smile? Maybe it takes you back to a memory or a place that you've been. Before I finish up, I'd like to share with you one of such songs that makes me smile. When I was in Ireland, we learned a few Irish songs. The thing about the Irish traditional music, it comes in many forms: ballads, laments, drinking songs. They're performed in a wide range, but the thing that I really love about traditional music is that it was music to begin with. These weren't poems that were arranged into music. They were songs and stories that were told by singing. And this is one of the finest examples of storytelling. The song I'd like to share with you is a ballad called The Blooming Bright Star of Belle Isle. And I put the lyrics up here. If they're hard to see, it's okay, I'm going to explain it. The song is written by the perspective of a young man who is traveling by Loch Erin and comes across a young woman working in the fields. He tells her, "Fair maiden, where do you belong? Are you from the heavens descended, abiding in Cupid's fair throng?" She is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. She is the blooming bright star of Belle Isle. And she replies to him, "Young man, I will tell you a secret. It is true I am a maid that is poor, but to part from my vows and promise is more than my heart can endure. She was left by her love, who promised to come back, and even though he's taken a while, she refuses to give up on him because it's more than her heart can take. I'd like to share a clip of the Bel Canto Children's Chorus singing this song, the last two verses, which will appear. And in these last two verses, we find that this young man is the love of the woman who he is speaking to. He has come back to fulfill his last promise, and he hoped to give her a surprise. He wanted to see if she still loved him, and finding that she did, they lived happily ever after. Music is a very uncertain field, and over the past year, being a senior here at Perkiomen Valley, it's been tough trying to decide what I want to do with my life. But I have decided that I really would like to go into music because it is what I love to do. I want to wake up every day knowing that I am doing something that I think is very important and that makes me happy. Seeing as how far music has brought me today, I do hope and truly believe that music can bring me my own happy ending.